Well, hi there. Hi, everybody. It's Mark Fonseca Rendeiro, if you like full names, but I don't think we're so formal. It's Mark. I'm in Berlin. You want to know more? I'm in Pankow. I try to give it a little twang, but of course it's probably the wrong twang. But I don't care. I want to say Pankow. I'm in Pankow, and it's the Wikimedia Conference 2017. Yes. If you're hearing this in the far future, the date when this was recorded was the wee hours of the morning on Sunday, April 2nd, 2017. So tell me, future boy, who's president in 1985? Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan? The actor? I suppose Jane Manfield is the vice secretary of state. Yeah. You know why I mentioned Back to the Future? Because Chuck Berry died. Some of you understand. But of course, Marvin Berry was in Back to the Future. So I watched Back to the Future again just before departing for Berlin, where I'm here at the Wikimedia Conference. Well, here, it's somewhere else in town. Now it's the wee hours of the morning, as I mentioned. And I haven't done some kind of podcast in quite a while, but no empty promises. A new season of this here realities podcast. This is a reality check, I guess. But whatever you want to call it, the podcast where I speak as a human with humans, is about to get started with a slew. You know what a slew is? I don't have it in front of me, but I believe a slew is a lot of things. A series, So it's the right word. There's going to be a slew of guests who are going to come to my kitchen table. And if you want to be a guest, well, all you have to do is make it to Amsterdam to appear at my kitchen table. And actually, to start off this series, we're going to kick off this series with a conversation that I had with my mother at her temporary kitchen table. Okay, I'm breaking with what will be the tradition, but at her temporary kitchen table in Florida. Yeah, well, my parents are retired, okay? And so don't judge. I hear you judging. They like to go to Florida in the winter. Yeah. Somewhere there's a support group for children whose parents shocked them or fell in love with Florida and you never expected it. If there's such a support group, I would like to go there. But okay, no, I went to Florida and actually it was a very nice time with my parents. And we sat at the kitchen table, which is what this podcast is going to become all about. And Mom told me about her life as a teacher for 20 odd years. Did she hit 30 years? Mom will tell me. In the Newark school system. And it's really something. So I don't know if you know this, right? I'm Mark. Hi. I'm in my 30s. Maybe you didn't know that. I make podcasts. I've been making them since the year 2004. 2004. That was a really long time ago. Some of you could have been children then who didn't know what a podcast was. And now in 2017, you could be kind of teenagers, right? Hi. So I've been doing it for that long. But, what does this world care that I've been making podcasts for so long? It doesn't. And why should it? But regardless, I've been making these programs and, why did I bring that up? How long? And the kids in the how long? I don't remember. Oh, anyway, the Florida, I was there and, oh yeah. And, my father, my mother, and my brother all work, or now in the retired sense, worked for the Newark school system in Newark, New Jersey. And not quite as well. My father is a teacher, my mother is a social worker, which you'll hear all about. My brother's also a social worker. James, I hope you don't mind that I mention you. I've always wanted to have my brother on the program, actually. That's the power of a podcast, to be able to, do interviews, talk to yourself, but it's also very nice to talk to members of your world, your immediate world, your family world, your friends' world. Every podcast has to have like a power guest. Yeah, people who do amazing things and are recognized for it. Yeah, sure, power guest. But what about the people who don't get worldwide recognition but do wonderful things? I want them to have a place, and especially if they're my family members. So my family members do great work, have done great work for those who are retired. And finally, I got to sit with my mom, and she could talk about these things. And the Newark school system is a troubled one. It has problems. And that meant that while my mother was working for it, she could not speak out, or it was a risk anyway. So I kind of respected that, didn't push it, and I knew that one day we would get to sit down when all was safe, and I think we've arrived at that point. So my mom will talk about the experience of working in a school system in a mostly poor city, a city that had a lot to do with my childhood and their adult lives, because my parents came in Newark in the late 60s, and my mom a little bit later. But Newark has been this place that started them out in the United States. And when it comes to work, it's their world. Now we were a suburban family outside of the city relatively quickly in my life. So yeah. Anyway, I think it's interesting. I think it's the kind of stuff that we can do with podcasts that we should do. But of course, the world of podcasting doesn't necessarily agree, where everybody's trying to do something so fantastically unique and popular. And I'm glad I have you, my dear listeners, that are willing to listen to something that isn't the most famous director or actor or whatever at the moment. I like that stuff sometimes too, but this is my other favorite thing. So, anything else I should tell you before we go? Because I probably won't come back at the end. My mother and father have both been on the podcast. We're almost at 500 episodes on Citizen Reporter. This is a newer program, trying to clean up the archive, trying to, I don't know, make this for a new audience, that younger generation that I was talking about. So it's been a while, but there is an archive there of conversations with me and my family, and I'm really excited to have this one to go with it. And all that's missing now is a follow-up conversation with my dad, because it's been a few years since we did that for the program. So that will happen very soon. We will meet again for the usual family summer meetup in Portugal. Look at that, Portugal, Florida. Don't we sound fancy? We're really not fancy, but yes, we have a certain privilege. Though, if you listen closely, you'll probably hear that privilege was not always there, but it certainly is now. Okay, anything else to report? Berlin. Well, it's a wonderful city. You probably already knew that. You might be sitting in Berlin, so I could almost high-five you on my way out in a few days. But it's it's second home. It's my favorite place to be outside of Amsterdam. And the Wikimedia community is great, and I love it. But then again, communities that have brought me to Berlin for conferences have always been great. So not necessarily anything fantastically new here, just more continuation of that which is good. And if you're from that community, well, welcome. It's nice to have you as a listener. This is a podcast. I intend to, in the coming months, have regular guests. They're going to be in my kitchen. I'm going to make them tea and snacks, and then we're going to talk. And my goal is to get to know people in directions that I perhaps never have tried, asking deeper questions than the usual. But I also want to talk like humans. And then there's a hypocrisy there because it's a recording, but I want to dare to push that hypocrisy out by making a warm environment, by refusing to act like a robot, and trying to stimulate off-the-cuff answers, or, not ask the usual if people have done a lot of interviews before. So it's going to be about many topics, but many of those topics are going to be about us as a society, reflection, and us as individuals relating to society as people who create perhaps media or create services to try and make the world a better place or make life better for some people. All right. Let's get into the conversation with my mother, which took place somewhere in Florida just a few weeks ago on this fine beginning of spring 2017. Thanks for listening. The website is realitispodcast.com. If you are a Citizen Reporter subscriber, I'm going to start putting this show in that feed. Why two feeds? I don't know. This is just an inexact science. I'm trying something different. All right. Thanks so much. Go to the website, subscribe so that you can get all the new shows because they're coming and you don't want to miss it. I'm out of here from Berlin. Mark Fonseca Rendeiro. Let's talk to my mom. See ya. Now officially on the record, Mom. Yes.
I never spoke with the Russians. Oh, wait a minute. I spoke with 2 Russians.
My mom, the Attorney General.
That's right.
Do you have any more good current events jokes? Okay, the topic is retirement, because we are in a retirement place. Are we not? We're in Florida. This is retirement country.
Well, yeah. But there is tons of people here that are not retired. They just live here.
And do, regular life stuff.
Right.
Yeah, well, okay. But you're not of those people.
No.
You are of the retired.
I'm a sun chaser.
A sun chaser? Mm-hmm. What does it mean, as far as you know, to be a sun chaser?
Whatever is sun, I'm going.
Okay, but it's Florida. There's sun all year round.
But it's too hot in the summer.
Okay.
And too humid.
Okay. But returning to the retired thing, you didn't always chase sun. You used to work.
No, I had to work. Not that I didn't want to chase sun then.
Yes. But so for... I don't know. So you let's talk about your job.
Okay.
And then because that's what leads us to retirement, I think. For many, many years, did you... 20, how many years?
26.
26 years you were a...
School social worker with the child study team.
With the child study team in Newark, New Jersey. I know a lot of those team members. They're very, very nice people. So you worked with children?
I worked the last 10 years with children, mostly with preschoolers.
Preschoolers.
And bilingual Portuguese kids.
Okay, and for people who don't really maybe grasp the concept of social work in school, what was a lot of your...
I was part of a diagnostic team that evaluated children that either had behavior or in preschool is delays in development. We don't talk about disabilities until they are 5 years old. So if the intent is to see if we can provide services to address the gap in development. So the children, when they go to school, to elementary school, they won't need services. That's the goal. Yep. It doesn't happen all the time, but that's the goal.
Yeah, and that's something actually that you don't find everywhere in this world.
No.
Maybe more so now as countries start to realize.
Right. The problem is what I find with the countries that I have some experience, at least feedback from parents and stuff like that, is that, for instance, in the United States is a federal law. Because it's a federal law, the funds have to be available. The quality of services are not always the same. And not always as, but there is a federal fund that comes for kids, is based on IDEA, the American with Disability Act. Okay. So the funds come.
So that means that even if I lived in Utah and I was a child with some...
You might be evaluated from, not as with the diagnostic team that looks like, because the federal law says you must be the needs must be addressed, but not all states address it with a full team like New Jersey. New Jersey was a model for child study teams. In preschool, we had 4 people always on the team. That's a language person, so a speech and language specialist, the learning consultant, which is a specialized teacher, the psychologist, and the social worker. Depending on the delay, we need to have at least 2 people evaluating that child.
Yeah.
Okay? Not everybody needs to evaluate unless the delays are so significant then that you need to address many years, but very rarely do we all evaluate.
Eventually, I would like to lead back to the whole concept of retirement, which probably is, I don't know, it's very relevant to your life right now, and maybe for a lot of people coming up. Hold on, let me adjust this. Okay, so you're a social worker in Newark, which, by the way, is something that you didn't grow up wanting to be. How did it happen that you, would you say, found your calling?
Well, I was close to education because your father was a teacher. Mm-hmm. So at home, we discussed a lot of issues related to education. Also, because we had the store that had records.
Yes, we had a store. It had records. Okay.
That sold records. I was in contact with a lot of young men and women, high school age. And, being a friendly sort, I would talk and ask questions. When I went to college, after you were born, I knew I wanted to do something in sociology. That's what I thought I wanted to do something. So I took some courses, and then I took a course in sociology, and I met a social worker. And I asked lots of questions. She was a school social worker. So I asked tons of questions. What did she do? So I liked it. I liked it because I thought I could help. I could do something with immigrant population and the kids of immigrants, because a lot of them were, the ones that went to college were the first people in the family to go to college.
Yeah.
Most of them were the first people to have a high school education. Yeah. So they didn't have anybody at home either to motivate them towards school or that had knowledge about what is next. What can we do? What do you need to do to get there? So planning, orienting young people, I felt that I could make a difference there. And so I remember talking to this professor and saying to her, was a female, Dr. Siva Elias, I said, I think I want to do what you're doing. And I remember her saying to me, I don't think you do. School social work is not glamorous. It's mostly paperwork. Mm-hmm. And man, was she right. Yeah. But during many years in the beginning of my career was not like that. I got to do a lot of interventions with young kids, especially the new arrivals that were so dear to me, because I remember what was like. So
and you got to meet like their parents, and yes. You would go to their houses. I remember stories about their houses.
Yeah. Well, I think you're talking mostly about because before I became a school social worker, I worked at an agency, a family agency, and I worked with DIFAS cases that the children had been removed from the house or that they were in danger to be removed. So I used to do in-home family therapy, in-home therapy. So I think that's what you're thinking about. Yes, I did go to some homes if the parents could not come to school for the interview, because part of the social worker role was to do psychosocial evaluations where you interview the parents, you review the family history, learning disabilities, anything that is impacting on a child, because the law says that the difficulty learning cannot be the result of home environment, of lack of opportunity. So in other words, for you to have a disability, you have to have a disability because you have something that is impeding you to do it, not because you had no opportunity to learn. Mm-hmm. Or something that is happening at home that is impacting in your learning. So that's the reason behind doing the social worker being involved.
Yeah.
So that's how I got there.
The thing with where you spent, the majority of your career, the Board of Education, in this case Newark, right? For so many years, I wanted to ask you questions. I didn't be able to record, but like a lot of people will say about their jobs, I was always worried I didn't even ask you because of the politics, right? I can't ask you why decisions are being made or what doesn't make any sense because you have to work there. So I almost feel a little bit freer now. I think you do too. Well, now that you're retired.
I never had a lot of problems.
but yeah. So one of the things that always left, obviously the first part leaves an impression on me, probably deeper than I understand, which was, what my mom does and the issue of not just childhood development, but engagement in a community and so on. But on the other hand, and I think I'm still haunted by this, I saw you both my parents, wrestling with this monster that is a really big bureaucracy, a Board of Education, right? So you're one, so many times I see it as you were one peg or cog in a big machine, and you were a particularly good cog in that machine, and many people will attest to it. But the problem was that you had to deal with, there were like words like supervisor or direct, it was not just higher ups, it was sometimes people in the same level.
We went through phases, and right now education is in a really bad place. I have to tell you that when I started, I did a lot of different interventions, and I was free to interact and to implement a lot of the things that I developed. But we didn't have input. So the demands would come from the top to do it a certain way. And then Newark changed, education changed. And there were a lot of innovations. For instance, I was part of the core team. The core team would meet and we would develop programs for the school. Mm-hmm. Or in case of for instance, the Department of Special Education, we had a committee and we wrestled with issues and we made recommendations. And tons of those recommendations were implemented. So in that period of my professional life was very rewarding because I always volunteered. Yeah. And I would go and we saw the difference that we would make. And suddenly there is a change again. And the state takes over.
Right. So this is also, I think, for people outside of New Jersey, United States, this might be confusing. I'll try and you can help me. Education is normally you have a school board, which is local, of your city, of your township.
I started like that.
Right. And then when school, at least in New Jersey, and I guess when a school system is really bad or full of problems or something big, then you can have this state takeover where all of a sudden, I don't know, there's just this more centralized control and there's no more school board.
Is an advisory board.
Yeah. But
they advise but do not make decisions.
I don't know any good way to make this more understandable for people. Yeah. Just imagine like the federal government or the larger government wherever you live that didn't used to be involved in controlling the education system now coming in because something's wrong on the local level.
Well, they always did because they monitored to see if we followed the rules.
Right.
So there was always there. And then they took over. Oh. And I have to be honest with you. I was in favor of the takeover in the beginning because I thought it was going to change for the better. Man, was I wrong.
Well, you replace one bureaucracy for another, no?
Much larger.
Still to this day in charge?
Oh, yeah.
That's another thing, right? It's supposed to be for a little while, but it becomes forever.
So the superintendent is hired by the state. They go to advisory board, but it's just,
You lose democracy in a way, I guess. Because in most school boards, they're elected or...
And there is a lot of corruption because you know it is.
And there you are, though. You're working a job that, depending on what happens with these offices and
Right. You have
politics,
yeah.
your job is impacted, right?
It is. It is because you may or may not have the programs appropriate for the kids. They make decisions that affects the families. For instance, at one time they came in with the idea of one Newark. I was there yet, and that's fine.
One Newark.
And one Newark was supposed to address the inequities of schooling. Because in Newark, you had regions where the schools were supposed to be very good, and you have schools that were very, very, very low performance. So the intentions were good.
Yeah.
But the problem is that children and families are not numbers. You have to speak with the soldiers that are on the field, which are, in this case, the professionals that work with the families, and ask questions. And they say, if we do this, what's going to happen? So
usually we don't.
There was no input.
That's not how...
There is no. And as a matter of fact, they would get very annoyed with me because in meetings I would play dumb and ask questions, and I would say, for instance, if I'm a mother and I'm a single mother and I have no car and I have 2 kids and my 2 kids are placed in different schools, who's going to school? They would get very annoyed with me.
Yeah.
And let me address something, because this is important. And, it's interesting because I always felt free to speak because there is such a little thing as tenure.
Which is a thing that a lot of people are government
against.
or against. Yeah, tenure because of the idea that you have a job for life.
Well, the idea is that you don't have a job for life, but for them to fire you, they have to present
Evidence or something?
Evidence that you're not performing your job. So I felt that I could speak, and although they would look, they didn't look at me straight.
There's some risk, right? I mean,
well, there is some risk, but I also, the families liked me, and if I needed them to fight, they would fight. So I never felt that my job was in jeopardy. I have to be honest with you. I actually felt that if I spoke, even though they tried to ignore me a lot of times, there was some level of concern because I could move parents. So, I could. All I had to do is make 2 or 3 phone calls, and they would make the rest of the calls. For certain things. Certain things are so big, like right now is so big. So what they did was, in place of using some different rationale, they allowed the machine to select the kids' schools. So if I was a mother of 3 kids, technically my kids could go to 3 different schools. And it was not in my neighborhood. It could be across town. So I had a case, for instance, where the father didn't drive. Every time there was a meeting, he had to ride his bike from the Airbound
different neighborhoods.
To the hospital, by University Hospital.
It's a big city, listeners.
So, it's just nuts. Okay.
By the way, what was the original intention of such a system?
It was to
School choice or something?
To improve the inequities, to make it better.
Right.
Okay?
So if your neighborhood is bad, it's okay because we're now going to send you to other neighborhoods.
And
it's
so you mix the students, okay?
Yeah.
So I always said the intention was good.
Right.
The problem is not with intentions. There is a lot of good intentions. It's with executing the ideas where they fell, because they don't get feedback from the people that work in the field. And more, they come in, they demand, they have an agenda. For instance, right now they have an agenda. But, and anything that is done is to go towards the goal. And the goal is to privatize as many schools as you can. Yeah.
That's not what they
Charter
say, though.
schools. What do you mean that is not what they... Sure. They want, the unwritten goal is about 30% being public schools and the rest being charter schools, which is run like a business. So,
I remember the short time I got to be a substitute teacher in Newark, and you would see these. Again, it was the state-run time. It had already been for some time. But you would see these programs that every class had to do. No matter what, you could be in a math class, you could be in an English class, but there would be this packet. And it came sometimes with CDs or videos, and it was made by some company somewhere. And it was like, here's the lesson you have to do, everybody together, and this will help all your test scores. And it was the strangest feeling because it was like
they don't allow
one size fits all.
They don't allow the teachers to do what they do best. This does not mean there are not good and bad teachers.
Right.
There was always, in every professions, in every profession there is good and not so good. We know that.
Yeah, plenty of bad teachers in Newark.
Absolutely. And every place else.
Yeah.
Okay, let's not. I mean, there are people that go to teach because, I don't know. Some
Those who can't teach.
Right. Well, no, some people really, they have no vocation and suddenly they are teaching, okay? I mean, the hours are convenient, not anymore because you are there all day. But
it's familiar. Many people went to school, so they know. And if you follow a formula, you can become a teacher. I mean, you may not be the most inspiring person, but you...
Not anymore. Things are changing. Curriculum-wise, things are changing. The problem is that any time there is a new program, we run and buy it because that's going to solve all our problems. But then we never do a needs assessment to see if that program fits our population. We never do a study of the results and see where we failed. So we don't do the analysis of what we implemented to see what we need to improve.
Yeah. Well, we look at test scores, right? That's still the case.
Right. So somebody else will come and say, the problems that you have in that area, I have a program that addresses that.
Yes.
That goes another program.
Yeah. And my only mistake was not getting into that business, so I can sell all these programs to all these education systems and make lots of money and not worry if students are getting...
Let me tell you something. I know teachers that stopped teaching and they're hired now by these big companies like Pearson and stuff like that. That's all they do. Yeah. So, yeah.
And then you see the people in government sometimes that have connections to these companies. I forget. But we've seen them in the last 15 years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the school system itself, I know you can talk about forever. And I think it's something that people can relate to either as having been students somewhere or maybe watching education. And when we look at what's happening in the world, I think a lot of us wonder about what is going on with education and why do we turn out the way we turn out for those of us who went through whatever kind of school. But I want to come back a little bit to there you are. You're working for a very large bureaucracy that, like you said, as time goes on, when something new is recommended, they run over to that. They're just running from, some people say, fire to fire. And
programs became more and more tied to budgets and money.
But don't people become really, like people who are working with you or disillusioned and just stop caring?
For some people.
You do the minimum.
Yeah, but if you're in it because you really care, you're working with these families and these kids, whatever you do, these families are going to be affected. Yeah. So if you really have ethics and moral and you care about people, it's really hard not to care. Yes, there are people that will do the minimal, and I found plenty of them.
Who once were very hopeful people, maybe.
But that is, burnout is a reality because you fight against the stream all the time.
You never
all
win.
The time. I've learned that you take small winnings, and that day that you were able to accomplish that goal that everybody thought you couldn't, and you did it, that day counts and helps you for the next month. And then, so you have to concentrate on small things, because if you become negative and you say, "Oh, it doesn't matter what I do," is not, forget it.
You can't look too much at the big picture,
right?
Because the big picture is
and I have to be honest with you. By the end, I was becoming tired of fighting.
That's my impression.
Yeah, I was. I couldn't take the decisions that were being made. Was not for the benefit of the children. I wouldn't mind adapting to new things if I saw the benefit, if I saw someone, but when I saw what they were doing and they were affecting families, and families were coming and crying to us, and we were told what we had to say, because you are the agent, you represent the Board of Education, and you have to sell this new program, the way it's set up to work. And you disagree with that program. Yeah. And social workers, we have a license. And oh my God, we have to have ethical behavior.
Right.
Otherwise, we can lose our license.
But there's a conflict there then.
Oh, sometimes it is. Sometimes it is. Sometimes you have to see what are you going to do. Are you afraid for your job, or do you follow the rules of your professional license?
Yeah.
And I used to say that to principals all the time.
Yeah.
I work for you, but it's a higher power here. I have a license that I have to uphold, and I'm really sorry, but I cannot do that.
Yeah.
So, but you got to be very strong. The other thing that changed, everybody is evaluated job performance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. During many years, we had supervisors that would come in, knew what we were doing, and would evaluate us. And then the system changed. And now we had principals evaluating the teams.
Right.
So you lost your independence. Because if you're going to go against that principal, and luckily I never had that situation because I was working with a preschool team and not in a school, based on the school.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the other team members work in the school. If they don't do what the principal wants them to do, they put their livelihood at risk.
Mm-hmm.
So, especially the younger, inexperienced people, professionals that come in, they go through a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a couple of things. One is the conversations over the years where it sounds like, and there you knew people for sure who did this, who you better go save yourself, actually. Go get a job somewhere else. Don't get into this system, because there are places in this state or in this country where you'll be treated better or you'll have more impact.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I advised many people, listen, this is becoming too rough. You're starting out. You help children no matter where you are. Mm-hmm. Just go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there has to be a certain element of course you want to help people.
Yes,
but at the same time you have to preserve your sanity and your...
Yes, self-preservation.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And of course I guess this is the key to a survival of a city like Newark. There are still people who will dare to, even though they know it's a really hard situation, they'll be inspired to try anyway.
The families, when I do conferences, I do all that. And every time that I would say I work in Newark, people would go, mm-hmm. because it's an inner city, the crime rate is high. People don't understand. These families are, most of them, I'm not saying all of them, but most of them are so kind and so appreciative of everything you do for them that there is other rewards when you work in a system like that. And I have had friends that moved from Newark to upper class neighborhoods. They cannot deal with it because the parents are rude. They don't appreciate the teacher's job.
It's a service. Yeah,
they tell them off. The kids are superior, with superior attitudes, and they snobs. So they have to come back because they can take it.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of good things in Newark, okay? And a lot of rewarding things for a professional in Newark. But not everybody is cut to do it.
Yeah.
A lot of, if you are thin skin, forget it. Don't go there because you can't. You got to be strong. You got to know what you're doing. You have to have conviction. I used to tell the social workers, my New Jersey code is my Bible. When I'm on vacation, I read it every year. And they'd say, you read the New Jersey code? Yes.
Code of ethics?
Because it's the law.
Oh.
You need to know. If you know it, nobody can make you do things that are not lawful. Because you know it. Mm-hmm. You know the chapter, you know the number, the article number, and you say, sorry, we cannot do that. Because according to, and you tell them. If you don't know the code, you cannot fight for the rights of your kids because you don't know the code. They tell you, do this.
Yeah.
Oh, but that's not procedure. They don't know that they have the power to uphold the code. Is the law. And usually what they need to say is, Okay, they cannot disobey. You understand? We cannot disobey a rule. If a principal tells us or a supervisor says to us, do this, and we find it illegal, the only thing we can do is say, listen, I cannot disobey you. However, put it in writing.
Yes.
I need you to put it in writing because I don't want to lose my license. And how many principals do you have that put it in writing? No, because they become responsible.
Right.
If the parents go to court, they are the responsible ones.
Yeah. But so then there's what I saw towards the end, what I heard, maybe not even towards the end of your career,
Right.
but even here. So we're in Florida, and we've certainly gotten together with
we talk
other
about education,
teachers
yeah.
and people who worked in the school system. It's kind of amazing, but I guess it's not surprising that so many teachers from New Jersey would end up down here in Florida. And when you get together, you tell stories from the work, and maybe because most people just retired 2 or 3 years ago, many of them, there's still there's a mix of like relief to be out of there. And that's something that I noticed towards the end, more so than looking forward to continuing this year. Or it becomes a counting the days, and even amongst colleagues that are younger, they cheer for your retirement.
Absolutely.
And I get to talk to a lot of people doing different jobs, and it's not always that way, right? There are lots of jobs where people don't really want to retire. They'd like to stick in it. But there's something about this job that people, as much as they're passionate about helping families and kids, they're also going, I'm almost out of here. Yeah. I'm almost out of here.
Well, it's a very stressful job, which people really don't understand. There is stress all the time.
Yeah. It's like retiring from the military.
There is timelines. You have time. For instance, you cannot evaluate a child and develop a program whenever you have timelines.
Right.
In between, okay, for instance, I have 60 days to evaluate and develop a program. It has to be developed and ready.
So pressure.
Right. Yeah. There is pressure all the time. Yeah. Of course, I'm not evaluating a kid at a time. Mm-hmm. I might have a spreadsheet with 100 kids. And there, who's coming, who misses an appointment, who didn't go to the doctor, and you have to manage all of these things. Nobody cares. They want to see that the spreadsheet has the dates within the dates that there are mandates. Yeah. So for us is that, for the teachers is the test results that now, think about these. You have a classroom with 6 special education students. Mm-hmm. If the students could learn as fast as the others, they wouldn't have special education services. Right. So there is a disability there. There is some kids will take more time to learn. Okay. Some kids learn in a different way. They don't care. They look at the results and they say, well, 80%, 60% or 50% of the students, your students did not make the mark. Mm. And so now that part is going to be part of your evaluation. The student results is going to be part of your evaluation. Yeah. But yet, the learning of the students, sometimes it does not depend on your performance as a teacher. Mm-hmm. Okay? It depends on many other things. And when you talk about low economic strata, you're talking about kids that have needs that are not met. Yeah. Okay. The kids are not ready to learn. Mm-hmm. The kids come late. The kids miss school. All kinds of things. Yeah. But we keep thinking that
it's what we do in school.
That different programs is going to address the needs that we cannot address in school.
Right.
Yeah.
The common answer in the United States over my lifetime has been, parents have to get more involved. It's the parents' fault. That's the cry of the
teachers will be frustrated and say it's the parents' fault because they don't get involved.
I think voters often say that.
Well, some studies have shown that when a parent is involved, the kid does better.
Yeah. And apparently those studies have gotten a lot of play.
Look, we don't have to be very smart. If you are involved, you are helping your child learn at home. Absolutely. The problem is that the home might have a lot of other problems.
Sure.
If you're worried about your survival, where you get the next meal, you don't have time for school.
No, that's why there's school. Yeah.
So it's a lot of barriers for involvement and for the school to be like the most important part of your life. If you don't have a job, if you have to take your kids to school every day and you got to walk in the snow,
Yeah.
Okay? That school is a pain in the neck. I don't want to go to that school with my kids. And I'm sure the mother is, why do I have to walk you to school? Remind me again, you know. So not everybody values schooling.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing.
But so by the end, you were counting the days. I saw you counting the days on Facebook.
Yes, I was. Yeah. I had my days in front of me, and I used to tease everybody.
Yeah. Because everybody wants to be in the position you're in.
And I still miss my families. I have to tell you, I
know.
I miss the children. I miss the families, and I miss my colleagues.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
I don't miss the system.
No. Right.
I don't miss the hurdles that I had to go through to do things. I don't miss the stupid decisions that I would have to sit through and listen to and say, oh my God, are they kidding?
Yeah, right. You don't miss the bureaucracy, that's what you miss. And the decisions that come from it. Yeah.
I miss the times where we were working towards a democracy. In the schools, people had voices. And I missed that time. And went so fast. I'm trying to figure out which president was there when this was happening. It was probably Clinton.
And maybe only the first 4 years.
It was probably Clinton. Let me... I cannot...
But it's interesting that you say, during a president, because over the last
Reagan, I don't know.
8 to 10 years, it hasn't mattered so much who exactly was president, because the whole thing just has a life of its own.
Because there are phases, and there are times that education goes to one side, and then the wind comes and goes to another side. And right now is a dictatorship. They decide,
Yeah, they've decided there's one cure.
They decide up there in the golden office, this is what's going to work.
Yeah.
And then they come down and say, you must. And that's it. I feel bad for the teachers, because we have really good teachers that had a lot of experience and knew how to teach kids. Yeah. And they took all of that away from them, because they don't make decisions. Some close the door and do what they can, but it's very hard, because they observed all the time. They come in, they have to have, especially in Newark, I cannot speak for other cities, but they have to have a plan on the board. They have to have the goals. They have to demonstrate that they working towards that, and the way the book says they must. It's ridiculous, but it is what it is.
And hooray for retirement, then.
Yes. Wait a minute. Who doesn't like to do whatever they want when they want?
Oh, I think there are a lot of people who have a hard time with that. I think you still have a hard time with that. You don't know exactly what you're going to do every day, and you want to do something every day.
No, I don't. I have no anxiety. No. I don't like to stay at home or do nothing, because it's not my style. So I do different things, but
I noticed you guys watch more news than I remember you watching.
Well, that's now. It's nothing to do with the retirement.
I think you want to be more engaged and
No, it's the situation we are in.
Particular.
Yeah. No, I never watched
as much
no,
as you do
ever,
now.
Ever in my life. Ever.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would not even pay attention to the news, to be honest with you. Many times people would say, "Oh, did you hear?" I was like, "Oh my God, no, I didn't watch the news." Mm-hmm. But now, I feel that I have to be abreast everything that is happening, because you never know.
Yeah. And you're living amongst the people, the retired, and maybe the Floridians, who do not necessarily agree with you on what's happening.
We learn not to talk about politics.
In the neighborhood.
We don't talk politics.
We talk about
anybody.
Weather and... Yeah.
No, we know exactly with whom you can... It is the saddest thing.
Yeah.
In any other election, we disagree. We might have voted for different people, but there was a level of civility, and you could disagree without any problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Right
remember.
now, you either for me or against me.
Yeah.
On both sides. So you learn to be around people that think like you, which is so sad.
Yes. Yeah.
But that's what it is.
Yeah. Maybe all the more reason to, besides the fact that you're friends anyway, but to get together with everyone who also worked in the same school system that you worked in, and get together and talk about things. Not that you agree on everything, but you have this sort of common ground.
Yeah, common ground. Because, you talk to somebody and they'll talk about immigration. Yes. And oh my God, they don't know anything about immigration.
No, or they've forgotten whatever they knew. Yeah.
No, but they don't know anything. Besides being an immigrant myself before I became a citizen, I've worked with immigrant families.
Right.
These are good people that are trying hard for their families and they're not criminals.
No.
So do you know, I remember when George Bush, first son, started to implement the law against immigration.
Mm-hmm. Would have been something like 2001,
right.
2002. Yeah.
The parents would call me with stories, because then the stories come out like the police are arresting or are waiting, are stopping, are looking for you.
Yeah, and that was in 2002. Yeah,
right,
yeah.
And these poor parents would enter in panic, would call me and say, "Oh, Miss Rendeiro, I cannot pick up my daughter. If I pick up my daughter, they're going to arrest me. What's going to happen to me?" And
people would stay in their houses.
And yes, they would say, "Are they going to come for my daughter? She's in school." And I'd say, "No, school isn't. They cannot come in school. Don't worry about it. It's not true. It's not what they're saying." But these people, think about the stress of living day by day, thinking, "Is today? Is today?"
Yeah,
it's.
And you think, maybe because you're not a citizen, but you think anything is possible. They can do whatever they want, even back then. So you have these.
Oh yeah. Oh, I know so many circumstances where the family was split apart. The guilt. I know a few cases where the parents would go to school to pick up the kids, and either they didn't stop at a stop sign or whatever, but the police would ask them, because the police is not supposed to do this, but they were doing that at the time. Yeah. Then they stopped. They would ask for documentation, and would ask for the green card, and people could not produce it. They would arrest them and take them.
Yeah.
And that poor child. Okay, I have a few cases. The guilt of splitting the family up. If he hadn't come to pick me up, he would never be arrested.
Oh, right.
Right.
The child feels responsible.
Oh, absolutely. Destroys the child. Because that's a heavy burden to carry.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I don't know. I don't know what is the answer, but certainly going about it this way is not.
Right. All right. That wasn't quite about retirement.
We talk about retirement.
But I guess that's, it doesn't matter if you're retired or not. That's what's on.
No, retirement gives you a freedom to do what you want. Okay?
Yeah.
Within your means, financial means, okay?
Yeah.
And, that's nice. It's like being wealthy.
How you always imagine being wealthy, like not having to go anywhere.
Not having to get up.
Do whatever you want.
Well, you don't do whatever you want because you still have family responsibilities and stuff.
Okay.
But you don't have time to get up. You don't have time to go to sleep. You don't have anybody demanding stuff from you all the time.
Yes.
You don't have the stress of deadlines. Oh my God, I didn't do this. Oh my God, I'm going to do this. Oh my God, when am I going to do this?
Yeah.
That's gone.
Okay.
So that's great. I love it.
Yeah.
I have friends that would say, "Oh, you think you're going to like it, but you're not going to like it."
Right. I often tell people that you like it, but you're restless. But you would deny the restlessness. Okay.
I don't know, because I still do little evaluations here and there. Yeah. Not much, but I do. And I have my arts and crafts. I do crochet, I do this, I do that, go to the movies, travel all the time.
Yes, yeah. And at the same time, keep up a little bit with what's going on in the office or wherever.
Oh yeah, I call them and they let me know. And, James, hey mom, you cannot believe what they did now.
My brother, yeah. All right.
And that's it.
All right, the retirement adventure. What are we in? Like the second year of it? Yeah. Third year of retirement? Okay. Yeah. Oh, well, then you're almost done.
And if we were allowed to do like a little part-time go there whenever I do an evaluation. I probably would do it because it would keep me in touch with the families and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, that's not how it works.
No. Now, I could do that in another district, but
Yeah.
it's not worth it.
I always imagine people will call you and they'll want your expertise on something. And they have. So,
Yeah.
All right, Mom. Good job.
Thank you.
You said you come from the north, and then I saw you in the south. I thought your eyes were blue, but was the one behind those black eyes also you? You also said you were a boy, but I met a lady with your voice. You were born in 62, although my friend's grandfather looks just like you. Why do you confuse me so? If I just couldn't recognize you everywhere. Oh, if you were just one, but you are as many as the things I love, and I can't have you all with me at home. If I just couldn't recognize you everywhere. Oh, if you were just one, but you are as many as the things I love, and I'm too small. I slept with you last night, and this morning you phoned from Chennai. How could I think you were dead, and then see you in my neighbor's kitten's face? You are an engineer, but you sold me a baguette today. If I am at the zoo, I feel in between children that laugh like you. Why do you confuse me so? If I just couldn't recognize you everywhere. Oh, if you were just one, but you were as many as the things I love, and I can't have you all with me at home. If I just couldn't recognize you everywhere. Oh, if you were just one, but you were as many as the things I love, and I'm too small 'cause you confuse me so. If I just couldn't recognize you everywhere. Oh, if you were just one, but you were as many as the things I love, and I can't have you all with me at home. If I just couldn't recognize you everywhere. Oh, if you were just one, but you were as many as the things I love, and I'm too small, and I'm too small.